Hola, hola. I'm Trek with two Ks,
And I am 3D, and welcome to Metaverses The Other Side.
brought to you here on the Gentleman of Crypto Network. Just a heads up, this episode is before we had the idea of bringing the Twitter spaces to the Gentleman of Crypto Network. And so that's why we're talking about the stuff that we're talking about in this episode.
All right, hola, hola, GNGs, hola, hola, folks in general. My name is Trucker Two, and yeah, Twitter is acting funky on us right now. So give me a second to get things in order because it just dropped me like twice. All right,
Wanna be, wanna be, wanna be.
yo, all right, so
What up, dude? How you doing? Hope everything's going well. I know your just almost there. Your plot is a little bit nicer every day. A little bit more down. I have crypto money. Glad to see you drop that. And we're just waiting back up there. Just get some people jump in before we start talking.
Yo. That took a sec. Good to see everyone tonight.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Looking forward to seeing the plot.
Oh yeah, man. I can definitely, best of my bet on it. It's looking nicer and nicer.
Awesome.
I'm actually really enjoying it. It's nice as fair.
Yeah, I can't wait to see some new video from it. Maybe do a walkthrough at some point when it's closer to being done.
Oh man, I know I'm gonna be getting one soon. And like the new mushrooms and stuff with the
Go from it. Maybe do a walkthrough at some point when it's closer to being done. Awesome.
Oh yeah. I know I'm gonna be getting one soon of like the new mushrooms and stuff with the the better graphic and stuff like that. So that way it'll be nice and pretty.
Awesome. I'm working on getting some good NFTs to put in the museum at some point. So it's all coming together.
Yeah, surely but slowly, right? It's always a positive way to do it.
That's right. As long as it happens at some point.
Yep. Well, Drake, you about ready?
my bad. I'm still trying to like send out notification stuff and yeah, thing. Um, if you could just do a quick intro or something, just give me another couple of like 2 minutes or so.
All right, bro. So I can definitely do that for you. So basically, today we are looking at, is there such thing as privacy in the metaverse or in the metaverses? As we've been saying, one more. And this is being recorded, so people who are catching this after the fact, stay for the whole thing because there's definitely gonna be a lot of information being spilt out on this now. Um, One of the things I think that brought this up was the last conversation from last week. We were talking about some stuff, and I mentioned there is private metaverse spaces or rooms, really, not entire spaces, but rooms that are privatable. And since then, we have figured out things like I can actually embed a couple of different type of metaversal rooms inside Ethereum NFTs. That means it is only available in the unlockable section and it is not extrudable, which means it's only viewable and usable within the unlockable section of the NFT. So that means when you go into your NFT and hit the unlock button, you will pop up. Everything is done inside that pop up. And so what we're going to be talking about today really is like how to achieve privacy. What is privacy and the differences between some privatable spaces and unprivatable spaces? Because as we get, more and more into more types of metaverses that there's going to be, that's going to be another one of those things that it's a key factor people are going to look for. There's going to be a lot of people who want that private room, private space where they don't have to worry. Other people are going to want just stuff where it's like private conversation inside the metaverse space. And then some people are going to want, oh, you know what, I want it completely public. And I also want to eventually at some point in this talk, describe why and what kinds of people probably will want each type of space, because not everybody's going to want everything, but there seems to be so far right now as it is, there seems to be certain types of personas that prefer a certain type of privacy level. And I think that's really going to matter for people selling or even advertising or even people building these things as we go on. I'm just going to, I think Trek is still sending out those notification stuff. So I want to start off with first, like, what is the major difference between a privatable and public space? So a private room or private space in the metaverse is literally that, like, you can only enter with a specialized link. And they're not yet, but I have been seeing tools pop up, and there are ways to build contracts to do this for any EVM. But basically, there is a way to make it to where links are whitelisted. So I can send you a link, and it has a special question mark dot, and then back end on the link that makes you specifically your wallet handle, your wallet address, whitelisted to enter that space. And that is a private space. That means that if you share that same link to somebody else, they still can't get in. And there's a huge difference. That's how you have business meetings inside the metaverse. That's how you have individual friendly chats inside the metaverse. You don't have to worry about people popping in out of nowhere or anything. And that is where you can even stop bad actors from getting into your space. Now, what's privatable? Privatable is technically a public space that you just need a link to enter, where basically if I send you the link and you send it to somebody else, they can still get in just like you can get in. And then a public space is exactly that, where it's either searchable, findable, or even shareable, a higher percent public. Like, for example, T-Pound came up with his Metaversal Studio, which we do have in the toolbox. And with that setup, basically anybody can view it, anybody can have access to it if you set it up into that manner. And I think that public space is definitely going to be something that we're seeing more businesses get into, because that seems to be who is doing public spaces now. Big business wants public spaces. They want to get as many people in there as possible, while small businesses want privatable spaces. They want spaces where they can get as many people in there, but the types of people they prefer in there. And then individuals really want those private spaces to where they don't have to worry about someone popping in out of nowhere. They can kind of control a little bit more of their space or room. And when you're talking about privacy, that really is what it is how much control do you have over that room, that space, and things like that. And just recently I updated the Metaverse Toolbox to get a chance to check it out, because in there right now, there are ways to actually build your own metaverse with a smart contract, with Solidity. Now that's the chain that most people want. It's an AVM, right? But there are GUI ways to build your smart contract where I don't have to know anything about code. I don't have to deal with looking at the code. Literally drag, drop, click, push buttons, and boom, I can start having a smart contract. And inside those methods of now we can build these smart contracts. Some of them will go as far as compile it, deploy it, mint it, the whole 9 yards, all right there, GUI screen with, you could actually make a mistake. You could get drunk, sit on one of these tools, and, in the morning when you wake up, you have a new metaverse that you built for whatever reason. And even how to access them or getting more robust, where before either you had to have a link or we had to send you an NFT. Well, now there are metaversal spaces already where I can send you a token, like a single individual token. And that token has data, and you just you basically go into your Etherscan, you look into that token, and it actually has a link inside that token. And it tells you basically how to find the metaverse. So then when you go into the metaverse and it connects your wallet, it asks basically your wallet, says, hey, does this person have X token? And if you have it, you can get in. And with that now new type of entry, we can create levels of privacy where it's okay, you have 1 token against the base layer. You have 10 tokens to get into the next layer. Yeah, 20 tokens. So it's almost like building VIP sections inside of these metaverses. And some of these metaverses are very uh, simple where it's like text. It's almost like a chat room. And some of these are full 3D models, like the T-Pound space is like a big full 3D model. The spatial and on cyber, they're big full 3D models. And so we can even determine like how those those spaces that are more private than some of the other areas, how it works. Like in the 3D models, there might be an actual section, or it might be a higher level where, you actually go up before. And then on the text space, it's literally just who you can see in the chat room. And so with these more robust metaverses, more robust ways to get people into these metaverses, the more robust privacy factors really can be these metaverses. Yeah, Drake, you're up.
All right, hey, sorry about it. So all right, man, you just like ran way down the track right now with stuff. Um, and okay, so before we actually jumped on, I was kind of thinking about this, because I wanted Mind Your Biz to be able to join us. I know he's out in Vegas doing there's some conference thing that's happening out there. So if he jumps in, great. But I was trying to think of the question from like his point of view on how we look at privacy. And then it got me into, well, privacy for who? Are we saying privacy as a builder or creator? Are we saying privacy as an end user? And what I realized within that is that we're talking about privacy in two different ways. Because I think you gave a pretty good set of examples of how, as an end user, you can put this thing together, or you can go into these different like private sections within metaverses, and then there are tools that you could use to create things that have a certain type or layer experience of privacy. Now, stepping back one, if you're talking about it as a builder and you're like, well, do I put in features that have inherent privacy in it? Like, for example, if I say to you, well, if you enter this metaverse, you're entering it through a through like Tor or through some kind of VPN where like once you put, let's say you had to put the address in or you scan the QR code and then it opens you up to whatever the front end website or thing looks like. There's a function in it that says in order for you to get here at this door, you have to go through some type of VPN or some type of Tor setup. I don't know if anybody's having this conversation right now, but this is what I know I thought of today before jumping on with this one. Then the other part of looking at privacy, and again, like I'm trying to think of it like kind of how Seth will kind of look at these things, aka Mind Your Biz. And then asking the question of like, where are the different parts of privacy for what we think we're private on versus what we're not private on? So another thing to think about is if we're talking about how you get into it, right? So like you're using your mobile, your phone, you're using your desktop, your iPad, whatever it is, those things are having IP addresses. And that's the other thing that got me into like the VPN thought process. And then again, looking at if we're building this stuff and we're trying to incorporate privacy as a feature, which way is it going? Or like at what level are we talking about? VPNs and Tors are helping you at the IPS address level. Maybe not. Cause I also thought of like Zoom, cause you know how with Zoom now, like you have to use the password thing to get into the chat. But it doesn't mean that Zoom doesn't know all of the information as far as like, hell, oh, well, this is who that person is. Here's the email that they're connected to. Here's how often they use the service. If you record your stuff, case in point, even with this app right here, Twitter, you record your stuff. This stuff is transcripted. It gets put into a file or a folder that is connected to your profile. And I imagine even when they say like they don't record the Twitter spaces if you like turn off or on the feature, even when you turn off the feature, I highly doubt they don't keep a recording of some part of this somewhere. But nonetheless, that was the direction my mind kind of ran in with the question of what is privacy in a metaverse? And are we talking about it from the, like, I don't want to say end user, but like the person, the user experience versus the builder creator experience?
That is a good point. Okay. Yeah, because I was kind of looking at more like end user and host user. As in for like the builders, there are ways they can set up to see if you are on a VPN or not. And even like, well, Tor, a bit more difficult to look for to see if you're actually coming from Tor. But I have, think we have one of the metaverses in the metaverse toolbox that they have a setting where you can say users cannot be on a VPN. So like they have, there's already like at least one metaverse where they're going, hey, we're looking to see if someone's on a VPN, and they're able to deny people on it, but nothing the opposite, nothing in the opposite. So for the builders actually building these so far, they're not really considering their own security, because most of them, I think they're actually being run on like AWS, and that, you know, can be its own issue. But like I said, with some of the new GUI tools out there, you could build one for IPFS, and you could do stuff like look to see if they're on a VPN or what kind of DNS are they routing from. And you could deny stuff like Google DNS, Microsoft DNS, or still, you know, only accept 1111 or 5555 DNS, which are the decentralized DNSs. And right, you know, like right now you can set up your metaverse to be ran through RSS S3, which is the decentralized RSS feed. And that right there, that would help obfuscate things that are happening inside of it and stuff like that. And I know Jitsi, because I've been messing with Jitsi as a service, and they have a lot of options and stuff. So the abilities to do the things that you're talking about definitely are there in the technology we have today. But the number of people actually utilizing them, very, very low.
Hey, thank you on that one for, you know, bringing some light on that. And yeah, that is interesting. Like I said, like I feel like we're having conversations that no one's necessarily bringing up right now, in part because it isn't the cash cow. But when it starts being important, you know, we're gonna look back on these recordings and be like, see, we told y'all we wasn't tourists about this. Blood, I see you. If you want to jump in, let me know. Put the hand up or something. Groove dude, definitely if you want to say something, jump in, or if you got a question too. And yeah, like 3D was saying, bro, when you see what we did in your plot, bro, like it's mind blowing. Just remember the phrase translucent mushroom upside down. When you see it, you're gonna be mama.
It sounds amazing. It sounds amazing. I keep imagining it in my head, but I can't wait to actually see it. I know you guys are putting together one of the best plots out there. So, man, I appreciate the hard work you're putting in. With regards to privacy, I'm glad this topic's being talked about, especially, you know, as it relates to the metaverse, but just in general. And you may want to consider looking at privacy as a form of safety, because it seems like that safety thing really appeals to the masses. But it is a part of safety. You know, you don't want to be doxxed or anything else, or tracked or traced. And so safety plays a big role in that.
Absolutely. I think dogs is a big issue.
Okay, so yes, on the safety, definitely on the doxing. So I feel like the safety idea is going to become a more prevalent thing as we go forward in the building of Web3, the expansion of like what you can and can't do if you know how to do it within metaverses. And then of course, in this overall within the crypto thing, as it is, where I almost feel like we're not as bad as it was in like 2015, 16 with like the Lambo kids and stuff. Or like where people were just like, hey, here's my wallet, here's my Blockfolio and stuff like that. But there is a different type of, I don't know what to say, I think say like showboating going on. And so, yes, privacy in all the different fronts that you have right now is definitely going to be a more growing thing. I think that with other bigger things going on in the economy, folks will learn more on how important it is.
Go for it, crypto.
What's up, fellas? I'm sitting here feeding my face, but I'm listening to the conversation. Very good conversation, very informative. I guess my question to you guys is, what does the landscape look like when we have a Tornado Cash like event occur, maybe 2-3 years, or even sooner than that, occur in the privacy metaverse space? What happens? Do the masses, and this is a loaded question, but like, do the masses kind of steer away and comply with the regulatory agencies? But which regulatory agencies do you think will be this will be under their purview? I just kind of want to get you guys opinions on a Tornado Cash like swoop down event in the metaverse privacy era, so on and so forth. That's it.
You can jump
I-
in first, Rudy.
All right. Yeah. There is something like this that may happen soon for Ethereum. So one of the biggest Ethereum node hosts are in the EU, and they just started talking about basically they're against all of this. And so now, right now, we're wondering if they're going to shut down their nodes and decrease the amount of nodes available on Ethereum, including a lot of the API structures. And so I think if anything was going to come down and do something like Tornado Cash, it's going to be something from the EU, because they have a lot more user and privacy related to their laws. And when that happens, it is going to dismount not all the normal people, because a lot of them will probably just be getting into it at that time, but it's going to dismount the companies that are putting the money behind to have some of this stuff built. And so what we will see is a dramatic decrease in creation of stuff. But thankfully, a large portion of the stuff that's been coming out the last 6 months, they're a lot more decentralized in nature, or at least they run on top of a chain for the data structure instead of it being completely ran off of like private servers. And so if any government regulatory body takes too long to step in to do something like this, it will be just like Tornado Cash. Sure, they say this, some people react, but for the most part, it's still going to be there, still going to be viewable, still going to be accessible. But the number of people who will be able to actually find them will be much, much more limited to those who just are in the know. Like, for example, if you didn't know Tornado Cash had an IPFS front end, you just assumed it was dead. Or if you didn't know that you could actually change your VPN and your DNS system to bypass the sanctions, then you could actually still find the Tornado Cash front end. Or that if you didn't know that you could use the blockchain, just use Tornado Cash. You could use it on the back end. And all those things right there, that's really what the privatable metaverse space is kind of what they want to go for anyways. They don't want to be on a private server or anything like that. They want to be more user ran. So if someone's in there, it's being hosted on their device physically, and instead of it being hosted somewhere else, and that kind of stuff there. But as I said, regulatory body, I'm not too sure. I just assume it would be something from the EU.
All right. So let me put on my tinfoil hat. I think that what the US did and I'm gonna cross this over into the possible scenario down the road. I think what OFAC or how OFAC has been utilized to take, I don't even want to say take a position, because depending on who you're paying attention to, the guidance or the understanding of what OFAC did in the space. For those who don't know what OFAC is, it is Office of Foreign Asset Control, which basically goes out under the U.S. Treasury Department, and they pretty much put Tornado Cash on the no-no list. But the way that they did it, it is still kind of open up to interpretation. And so you have things like what Tether is doing, where they're like, hey, we're still going to include these transactions in our history. Then you have things like what, I forgot the name for the other, Circle is doing with their USDC, where they're like, nope, we're blacklisting it all. I think that OFAC indirectly opened up a can of worms, and they do not understand or are even ready for how the ingenuity of the community as a whole, as well as the creatives of the scammers, the hackers, the black hatters, including the white hatters, are going to, over the next coming months, going into years, figure out the workarounds. I think that when you really start, from a regulatory standpoint, coming up with X amount of these hard, arguably draconian rules, that it sets lines, and then people go, oh, okay, I know where that line is. Bet I know, I'm going to figure out how to walk around the line. And eventually they do. That's the thing. Eventually they do. It's always the cat and mouse game, right? And then the other part of it being is, as much as these governments, and I'm saying this in the future tense, want to talk to their citizens and people in other jurisdictions and say, well, you guys can't use privacy in terms of money, they're not going to end up blocking out privacy as a feature of digital currency, because at the end of the day, those governments are going to turn around and use the same technology to do whatever funky black op questionable thing that they are doing and will do. And so the next move that, you know, arguably is going to come out of the US's camp again, because of the things I'm hearing about like later on this year, early next year with the regulatory stuff, all you're doing is just staking, you know, making the stakes higher on the cat and mouse game, in that I'm not going to say most people. I know for me, how I look at X amount of this regulation stuff going on is, it's about capital flight. It's about financial control. Because if you let people still have their mobility in how they move their money, that either, and I'm talking about like nobody doing craziness, you know, crazy porn stuff, child sex slave, like none of that stuff. Like things that we know are not illegal, right? And not like on the moral deep end. If you keep pushing more and more people into corners when everything else is going crazy for them in life, human ingenuity and like arguably human spirit always tends to make a way. That's at least how I look at it. Now, once everything gets back to be like cool and people are stressing over certain things anymore related to like financing and like, am I going to be able to eat, or will I have a roof over my head? Then it gets to where like this privacy stuff isn't that much of a concern anymore. Then it gets to where people are okay with the government doing the same stuff it did, like what it's doing right now, where it starts doing a little encroaching things on civil liberties and things like that. It's the same thing that happened after 9/11. The situation worked to where they could call whatever they wanted to as the government, and multiple governments around the world did it. And then the people were okay with it because of the current situation that they were in.
Correct. I think actually the opposite. I think that there we go. I think that, you know, in a time of crisis is when they're able to press the line force people into a certain direction or a narrative. As you just stated with 9/11, Patriot Act, and all that stuff that came thereafter 9/11, people were willing and was, accepting these draconian laws that were being passed and enforced on us. So I think like it's really the opposite. When it's famine, when it's bad out, that's when they're able to swoop in and add these types of laws in, and people will just comply.
I'm gonna say I agree with you for the most part. I would also say to counter though, I think that the level of quote awareness to the stuff now, okay, think of it this way in regards to like how much of the technology was able to be distributed the way that it's distributed now in relation to like IPFS stuff, in relation to like decentralized storage, in relation to like different means of communication that don't rely like directly on the telecom system or don't rely directly or indirectly on AWS, right? When 9/11 and stuff happened, now granted, there were people saying things, but we didn't have the same ability to the access of the technology. And then the technical learning curve was way steeper. As opposed to now, it's a lower technical learning curve. It's a lower financial learning curve. And I mean, in real truth, we know that most people are going to look to go along to get along. But when it really starts getting into like, how do I say this? If you keep doing everything you quote need to do to go along and get along, and then it's not getting you anywhere, I think that's when the people start really turning and questioning things. And we have a number of different scenarios that have played out so far where the government keeps showing, and it's not just our government, but it's other governments too, keep showing that they're not being on the up and up with the public. They're breaking the social contract. You can only break the social contract but so much, and history shows us that, before people don't want to listen to nothing, and then they figure out their own way. That's at least how I'm looking at it.
I'm just going to add in that, like, a little bit to what Trek was saying. Like, as the governments of the world keep doing what they're doing, like they've been trying to ensure that there is some kind of issue or problem in the world that can allow them to gain more control, for quite a few years now. I mean, like, I remember a point in time when I was a kid where we didn't have a whole lot of the fear mongering going on, or at least that's what it seemed like, right? And then nowadays it seems like every few months they're bringing out something new to fear monger, and people kind of get to a point where they just get tired of it. And as that keeps going on, and people see stuff where like the U.S. sanctioned, Tornado Cash, but yet Tornado Cash still runs. Tornado Cash still does its thing. And even people in the US still use Tornado Cash. And then they see, okay, so these sanctions and these laws and these things don't really mean anything, especially when it comes to blockchain. And, it's just like they pass all these gun laws, but yet people still have guns, criminals still have guns, people still print guns, like, you know what I mean? And we're going to start seeing that kind of thought process in more normal people, where like the younger generations of normal people, like my kids and the people between my kids' generations, they're like Generation Alpha or whatever. So Gen Z, they're all going to be seeing all this, and they're all going to understand, oh, well, yeah, the blockchain don't give a fuck about your laws, bro. So you can do all you want, but I still have a way to get on there. I just got to figure that out. And we have more, like we have session, we have more ways to communicate behind the back doors of government eyes, to where there's going to be ways to get that information out there. So as governments try to step in and block private metaverse space, because I know they're gonna, like, just the concept of like when I did private paper in Oklahoma, was like, well, we're afraid trial traffickers are going to use this technology. It's going to be the same thing with private metaverse space. People, they're going to go, well, trial trafficking or this or that, or anything they can use to fearmonger, they're gonna. And at the same time, though, it's still gonna keep going. People are gonna find their way. And just as people get tired of the continuals that they're doing, they're gonna as the younger kids get older, they're gonna go, well, you know what? Let's find this. Let's do this. Let's just forget about what they're saying. And it's just gonna be like in the next 3 to 5 years, a lot of stuff is gonna be really weird with this type of technology, because this is the testing time. This is the time where the governments are trying to test what they can really do. They got governments trying to, regulate this technology, and it's like, bro, this is so beyond your regulationable ability. You don't even know. Like, you might be able to arrest like 5, 10, 100 of us, but well, we got billions, or technically, yeah, I think we're at billions of active users across. You go across all chains and stuff. You have billions of active users. You get to a point where it's like we're above your guys' pay grade now, even though they don't realize it.
I'm just wondering when that is going to, when the consciousness within the community, crypto community, will wake up, like the masses will wake up to that point. 3D is the leveraging this technology, you can really circumvent all this shit, man, like with no problem. So I'm just wondering if, when do you guys think that event, when do we cross that Rubicon?
Okay, real quick, I'm gonna jump on this one. All right. 3D says something in relation to government coming in on regulation. You're saying the thing about like, when does the quote aha moment come to the community? The aha moment, in my opinion, does not come to the community until they really start seeing how first tier countries, citizens will be on par with third and second tier countries. Your daily life is going to be on par with second and third tier countries as far as like the cost of living, the being able to do things and not have to get quote like some level of permission or get some new level of restriction. Look what's going on in Canada right now. I'm still annoyed as hell about that whole scenario. So the thing that 3D said about the government thing, here's the funny part about that. And I said this to you the other day, CB. In the US, we have the whole Bill of Rights and the Constitution. And people often use that as to be like, well, this is our protection against the tyranny of a government. But if you actually look at what's being done, one, there have been certain things that have been done on small scale to like slowly take away certain quote rights and liberties from people. But the other bigger thing is governments just use private companies, aka a Google, aka a Facebook, aka a Coinbase, to circumvent going around constitutional and the Bill of Rights protections that we quote have here in this country to get the information they want, to be able to censor people. I think what we will see within this decade is where there's going to be that line drawn of, are you inside the garden or are you outside the walled garden? I used to think that it would have been like 3 groups of people, the inside the walled garden, the outside the walled garden, and then the people who are just moving back and forth. But for some of the things that I see now, it doesn't look like you're going to have that third group who will be able to just move randomly back and forth when they want to. As far as like the community as a whole, I think that second and third tier countries, those people are going to get the value of the technology as far as the decentralization of it, as far as the peer-to-peer abilities of it, as far as the like, there's a certain level of economic freedom and stuff that they have, as well as being able to move to a better position within their country. They're going to get those things. Why? Because they don't have the same, what is it called? Like the same technology pathway, and they are not going through the same growing pains as we are already here in like first tier countries. We already have X amount of established quote regulations. We already have X amount of established social norms. like when I remember when I first heard the phrase like the thing about how like Africa will leapfrog the West in technological adoption. Like they already had their version of a Cash App 20 years before us through M-Pesa, which was really just selling minutes on your phone, and that's dummy phones. And then now you have it that Nigeria has like 60-something% of their population that's under the age of, I think, 25. And on average, they have at least 2 smartphones. Like, and then look at where we are. Like, yeah, we have techie stuff, but we've gone through the process of utilizing the technology different. And, you know, we've also become accustomed to, quote, having first world problems, which is definitely not the same thing depending on where you are. And because of that, I think that when we see like the wake up, it's not going to be here in the US. It's not going to be in Canada. It's not going to be in England or nothing like that. It'll be someplace probably in Latin America, maybe someplace in Africa. Might look at Southeast Asia. But yeah, it's going to happen. But I also will say with a caveat, it's not like everybody's going to jump on the bandwagon. I don't see that. People are too comfortable in being able to delegate responsibility and kind of living life on an autopilot kind of way.
I'm gonna chime in on the aha moment thing too, because I think it's within the next 5 years. Within 5 years, the aha moment's going to happen, and I see 3 major ways that it's going to happen. Either kind of like what Chuck is saying, where third world countries are leapfrogging us, and the adoption of them with crypto is allowing them to have access. When we start seeing like a third world country tier business make their first $1 billion with cryptocurrency in some form, or metaverses in some form, and that gets publicized across the globe, that's me one of the ways. Another way it might happen is if the governments go after someone like on Cyber or Facebook, or they go after a centralized metaverse and it gets shut down, and then they immediately go after a decentralized metaverse and it doesn't get shut down. And then the other way I could see the aha moment happening is when a government tries to regulate cryptocurrency as a whole, and they can't, and that gets publicized. One of those scenarios is going to be the aha moment, and I do think we're within at least 5 years from now.
Go ahead, bro.
No, I was just
Oh, okay. Oh, so you asked something too. You said like what agency? I think that it'll definitely be a new what's the one? The cyber one, but it won't be like cyber. It'll be like a cross between like the Treasury Department and something with like DOJ or something like that. Yo, you know what I thought about the other day? Ghost in the Shell. That's what I thought about. That, and I'm not saying this is in the next 10 years, but the level of where metaverses and the whole virtual experience will go, eventually law enforcement and governments will have to have special policing, task forces or departments or a whole agency set up that will like look to move and operate on that level of what was in Ghost in the Shell. And granted, this is like 20 years down the line, but it is a definite slow and steady progression to that level is my point. For where we are right now though, oh, you know what I would throw in there? And I know we kind of really went left for those who listen to this later on about the whole thing of privacy and metaverses, but this does tie in relation to governments are going to come up with various reasons and logics to be like, well, you don't need privacy and we need to know all about what you're doing. And best to believe that in these metaverses, like in private chat rooms as it is right now, like what happens on Telegram, like what goes on in Zoom and stuff, WhatsApp, whatever you want to call it. These companies, the platforms themselves, they're definitely going to do X amount of snitching on folks, which then gets you into, now they give the information to the government, and now you have 80-something thousand IRS agents coming after you, right? Because, oh, you did blah, blah, blah trading on, you know, some chat group in Telegram. Here's something that I heard the other day in an interview, and I was like, wow, I have not actually heard anybody make this distinction about the IRS situation. One is that it said that about 50,000 IRS agents will retire within the next 5 years. So now, if you take away 50,000, but you're supposed to hire 80-something thousand, what's really going on is the IRS is back, like filling in the back end, because they know they're going to lose a number of people, and they went above by like 30K, because you don't know, somebody might not like the job after a year and then be out. Then you got to take into account they about to deputize some of these folks and get them armed, and they about to be in the streets. I don't know how well that's going to work out after 2025. Honestly, I do not. But the way that the story around the IRS hiring over 80,000 agents is not put in true context. And this is just a part of, what's up?
Actually, I covered that. I covered that one with like two Satoshi. I got info and go.
Is that on my end?
You're maybe turn the speakers down a little bit. But yeah, I did cover that on I think one of my two Satoshi segments. You know, that was definitely taken out of context as far as what you just said. The IRS hiring 83,000 or 80-something thousand employees. They have, I think, as you stated, 50-something retiring here in the next 5 years, which is a large portion. I think they have 80. I think they have 80,000 employees right now. That's a big chunk of their work base or employer base workforce leaving for retirement. So it's an antiquated system, but I do think that the funds that even though that may be the case, I do think that a lot of the funds that they're getting that's been passed in this bill is going to definitely bring them to the 21st century, because it's an antiquated system, that the way the IRS runs. So maybe you don't need 80,000 employees if they increase their investment in tech. So I know I kind of got off on a topic, but just wanted to make that now.
All right, I'm gonna just tap on this last one and we're gonna try to bring it back. But I think that's 100% a real thing, as far as there's going to be a definite increase in automation, and that automation is what's going to bring a lot of people, quote, under the eye of the IRS. But I don't think the numbers are going to be sustained the way they're talking about as far as like real people. I think the automation is going to increase probably like year for year. They're going to input more stuff, and it's not going to be as many like real live people, but you're still going to need those field agents. That's the part that scares me. But yeah, I mean, we'll catch up on that one another time though, for sure. All right, so we got less than 10 minutes, and oh man, Dante, you just coming in, bro. Man, we kind of ran around the world on this whole thing about what is privacy in the metaverse. So quick recap, I'm gonna throw it out there for the folks who will listen to this later. We basically are asking the question of what is privacy in the metaverse, when it's really technically metaverses, because you have blockchain-based metaverses and non-blockchain-based metaverses. We do see that as the technology moves forward in relation to blockchain, more of the non-traditional blockchain-based metaverses will cross over. We also see that privacy comes in two forms of the question of, is it that you are a builder or a creator? Because if you want a low code, no code thing, arguably you're a creator and you're not a builder because you don't code in full. And then there's the other question of, as a user, what do you expect or understand about how privacy works in the metaverse? We do know that there are tools and there are environments right now where you can set up actual private metaverses or rooms in metaverses for privacy. And again, it has a certain layer of varying degree. Are we talking about, is it just private within that ecosystem of you and the other person or persons in that environment? Or are we talking about it's private for the level of you had to use a VPN in order to connect to the platform that provides the metaverse service? Those are the things that are going on right now, that these tools are out here. They are available. Granted, you might have to do X amount of trial and error playing around with them, but they're here. What was the next thing that we touched on? Talking about governments trying to regulate, and that's what it was. CB asked the question of what would be the tornado cash event for metaverses that would like either shut it down or make a big stop in or slow down in metaverses, relatively speaking. And me and 3D are on the same page in that it's going to be a cat and mouse game. Once you try to come up with more rules, the creative and ingenuitive folks will find ways around it. The technology now is more distributed than it was 10 years ago. There are more tools now than there was 10 years ago. Governments to a large degree are still playing catch up. So that's why they use companies as the middle person to do things like censor people on social media and websites and blah, blah, blah. But that's how we're looking at it right now. So in short, the answer is yes, there is privacy in metaverses, but the question is, do you understand how to actually use it based on what your use case is? Are you a builder / creator, or are you a user going through the process of experiencing metaverses? Dante, I wish you would have came in earlier, bro. 3D, you got anything you want to add on that? We got 11 6. Oh, okay. Other thing to add in. This is the last Twitter space that we're doing on Sundays. We're switching to Thursday. I don't think we figured out the time yet. We'll talk offline on that one. And then the other thing is this Tuesday is our webinar, which right now is still called Digital Realty Intro to Metaverses. And we basically talk about a little bit of brief history of metaverses, as well as like opportunities to be able to make some funds in metaverses where you don't actually have to be a coder. We show you, how to use smart wallets and what this means to the bigger Web3 stuff. We will be doing some upgrades and changes in the webinar for next month based on what we've been experiencing by hosting these Twitter spaces over this last month and change. Like for what we started with now, what we started with as the idea and then where we are now is like leaps and bounds ahead. And also, if you don't know, we have a website that was compiled by me, 3D, Mr. Russo, who's out in here right now. But basically, it's a metaverse toolbox of low code, no code, and some high code stuff of open source tools that you can use to build in metaverses. The website is up now. It is on the IPFS. And it's basically free for anybody to come in, look and see what we did or see, what you're trying to do. Majority of it is in the EVM ecosystem, just because more things are being built as far as tools right now for that environment. But we do have some things in relation to like Wax protocol, where we had built the builder DAO that we have for what we do in the Uplift metaverse, if you're familiar with that. And yeah. This Tuesday is our webinar on digital realty. And that's like, honestly, what we started out with doing these Twitter spaces, but it's definitely led to a lot more exploration of the topic of metaverses and understanding as well. Next Twitter space will be, what is it? The next Twitter space will be about how why we changed the name of the webinar, and like what brought us to that whole thought process. And it's basically metaverses Cliff Notes for Web3. That's the new name for the webinar that's going to start next month. And yeah, we'll be doing it that way. I don't know if anybody has anything they want to share as I close this out, because it's like 4 minutes left. Anybody?
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, when we first started doing this metaverse, where we're like talking about it and so like that. It was just such a like, oh, how are you bringing this? How are you making it in here? It was like, oh, we're treating it like a real space. And then now we're at a point where it's like,
Meet your mother.
yeah. But, you know, it started off just we're using realty ideals and mottos and concepts to we're using realty mottos, ideals, concepts. We're using higher end monetizations, and then going as far as like, well, you don't have to actually flip and trade and do all this stuff. You could like maybe purchase one token, maybe purchase one NFT, maybe not even purchase any of those, and find different ways to earn and then using what little bit you do have to monetize, to build on top of, because it started off just as like land ownership to as far as like going to like not even having the land in a metaverse and still being able to earn by monetizing your time in that metaverse. Like just the expansiveness that we have now, it's so broad, so wide that the seminars, as we get them updated for the new content, they're going to be so much more valuable than what they are like with this one coming up. Like this one coming up, it's probably, it is really basic and stuff like that. But at the same time, if someone has never been in cryptocurrency and they get into the seminar, they're going to be like, oh shit, like I'm ready. They're not just going to be ready to get into metaverses. They're going to be ready to get into to hold crypto, to use crypto, to be a crypto person. And I think that these webinars, whatever that we're doing, they're the great way to open your mind to what you can do with these things, because everyone thinks that, you know, what they see on TV or what they see on the movies or how the media talks about it is the only way these things work. And in reality, they work however the fuck you want to make them work. It's like cryptocurrency. It's not a matter of what can crypto do. It's a matter of what can you do with your crypto.
Damn, I got to make a clip of that one right there. And on that note, folks, I appreciate y'all for coming out. Thank you so much. I'm going to do a recap on this on Twitter and like a write-up thread thing, and I will be tagging folks in it. Again, I appreciate y'all for coming out, and you'll see the reminder come out for the next one. Again, we're changing the day to Thursday. I just don't know the time yet. I hope everybody has a good week, and until the next one, later.